Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on Real Talk with Keith Smith. A pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network on a show presented by Yes Realty Partners, a brokerage that's been in business, folks, since 1987. Yes Realty Partners, Keith and Yonna Smith doing business the right way, the honest way at Yes Realty Partners. Keith and Yonna are celebrating their 40-year anniversary. We all should be so lucky to be married to a woman like Yonna Smith. She is the cat's meow. That's a throwback from yesteryear without question, the cat's meow. We all should be so lucky to have a 40-year anniversary that's frankly close to the entire month of May in the Caribbean. So literal hat tip to Keith and Yonna Smith here, as yours truly has been awake since 5:30 in the morning, working out with his 8-year-old son, as the kid is just razor focused. And it's really, frankly, brought us even closer together. It's just been fantastic. I sincerely mean that. Neil Williamson is here. Dude is awesome. I mean, I can't say it more simply than that. Neil Williamson is awesome. He's the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. If you're not reading Neil Williamson's blog at the Free Enterprise Forum, you're not keeping up with current events. I read his blog to do the I Love CVille show. Just being very straightforward. I encourage you to support and donate to the Free Enterprise Forum. He's at the meetings in person, is hiding in the seats when no one else is. And it's a good thing because, and it's a great place to start, Judah Wickhauer behind the camera, studio camera, then two-shot Neil Williamson. Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, I mean, this is the redheaded stepchild or the second cousin of rent control. It's rental inspections.
Annual rental inspections is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a great idea.
Sally Duncan, Jack Jewett supervisor, beat Dave Shreve. We all said, you said, I said, you better watch this election closely because their ideologies are very different. She floated, I'll get out of your way, you were there in person, rental inspections annually. Me as a landlord, I'm puckering up in the worst kind of way possible.
Well, I don't, remembering this is just a floated idea. At the end of each meeting, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors has a thing called Other Matters from the Board. This is one of the reasons we stay until the end of the meeting. Supervisor Duncan raised the idea there are additional powers for localities in Virginia State Code to require annual inspections of rental properties. Now, on the face of it, you say, well, that sounds like a good idea. Well, you got to go a little bit further. We ran some back-of-the-napkin numbers, which I know Jerry loves his numbers.
I do love numbers.
So if we assume, right now, it's my understanding there's about 16,000 rental units in the county.
16,000?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Okay.
And assume an inspection takes about 2 hours.
Okay.
That's 32,000 hours of inspection work. That 2 hours includes scheduling, performing the inspection, putting together the paperwork. It could be low. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'm with you. 2 hours per inspection.
Every inspector can complete 2,000 hours of work a year.
Okay.
That's 50 weeks, 40 hours a week. This means 16 additional building inspectors. The county currently pays between $50,000 and $70,000 for building inspectors. Let's pick 60 and times 17, that's $1,020,000. Add in 10% for overhead, and we get to $1.12 million. This assumes complete efficacy for the program and the employees, and we can probably say that's not going to happen. But the idea, the program's supposed to be helping low-income folks. Well, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, HCV program, already requires annual reviews. So what this does is it takes all of those apartments that aren't in the HCV program and says they have to have annual inspections. Those are your market rate units that are competing for renters. Right now, I see people advertising 2 months free rent. It's a competitive environment. So that market is taking care of the inspection idea. These are not squalor. This is a natural market condition. So rather than spend $1.12 million on an inspection program, maybe you could put more money into the Housing Choice Voucher Program. that might actually serve the folks you're trying to help.
Well, and I'll add, well said. Mike Pruitt's watching the program. Brent Lillard, the CEO of GovSmart's watching the program. Rob Neal's watching the program. Bob Yarborough's watching the program. Richard Fox, his family's got a fantastic piece of property right in the urban ring off of Rio Road. Don
Right
Gathers.
outside the urban ring.
Yeah, right. That's outside the urban ring?
That's outside the development area.
Outside the development area. Yeah, okay. But in the urban ring.
In the urban ring, yeah.
Don Gathers watching the program. Don Gathers, the best piece of content we've seen in 2026, period, bar none. Georgia Gilmer, Jason Noble, viewers and listeners shape the show. Brittany Moore, a talented real estate agent for Sasha Farmer, watching the program. The rental inspection storyline is absolute bananas to me, because these additional costs, without a doubt, will be passed on to tenants. Right. I own 24 doors, and if I was expected to pay 2 hours to a county executive, or excuse me, a county inspector, to make sure that my piece of property was in tip-top shape on a yearly basis, I would build that into rent. I would not pay that cost. And it's just going to make the rental market more expensive for folks. So Sally Duncan's idea actually makes housing more unaffordable than housing more embodying quality of life or safety. Is that her MO with this?
The idea that Ms. Duncan's general purpose is she's very much a housing advocate. And I think unintentionally, this would increase the cost of housing. I think it's an unintended consequence that they will find out about as they look into this idea that has been floated before at the Albemarle Board of Supervisors. The other thing to note is the reality that right now we are on the precipice of a storm regarding inspectors. I know of 4 localities, I believe, that are short on inspectors.
Well, Charlottesville City's one.
Charlottesville City is one of them.
Yeah, they have one now.
One.
Yeah, there's actually an inspector that used to work for Charlottesville City that has a burner account that's posting on the Charlottesville subreddit the dirty secrets of working for City Hall as a building inspector.
Well, and they have a third.
Have you followed that?
I haven't followed Reddit. Believe it or not, life says don't read the comments. But to your first point, yes, businesses don't pay taxes, customers do. But to the inspector's point, that's a core function of government. It is absolutely an issue of both public safety and economic vitality. We heard last week of inspections being canceled. And I know that sounds like, oh, poor you had an inspection canceled, you're going to be off time. Well, the reality is if you have enough of these things happen and you miss your critical dates, the investors, which generally are not from here, they're competing. Investors compete for where they're going to spend their money. We are up against Albuquerque. We're up against Santa Fe. We're up against Austin. The whole idea of return on investment and timely return on investment and counting on government to do their job. There is a reality that the people that are paying for the inspections, which are the applicants, are not getting the service they need.
Comments coming in. Put them in the feed. We'll relay them live on air. This is the obvious comment that's come from an Albemarle County taxpayer. How did the supervisors respond to Sally Duncan's rental inspection notice?
It was an interesting response. All thought, it's late in the day. We've been in this meeting. This is agenda item 18 at about 8 o'clock. We've been going since about 2 that day, 2:30. Most of them were like, yeah, we'd entertain getting more information. Mr. Pruitt actually called out the idea that
he's watching, by the way.
Oh, good. This may not serve the purpose you want. He suggested there may be a place for a tenant advocate with one half full-time employee or full-time equivalent being on the front end of that, and then another half doing the investigations, et cetera. That would be a lot less expensive than doing annual reviews.
I believe Sally Duncan is a renter herself in the Jack Jewett district.
That is correct.
If memory serves. So she is the only, well, Supervisor Galloway may be now. With the tragedy that happened at his house with the fire that's been well publicized.
Yes.
Malik, Lepisto, Ann Malik, Lepisto Kirtley, Mike Pruitt and Missile all are homeowners. Duncan is a renter, and probably Supervisor Galloway is in this case now. I have to ask you this question. It's a talk show. It's for the sake of conversation. How is the board going to respond after some thought? I mean, is this going to have legs? I characterize this as the redheaded stepchild of rent control.
I don't disagree with that characterization.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that when they see the costs associated with the benefits, I'll steal my old friend Tim Holbert's line, they'll determine that the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
I appreciate you covering it. Rental inspections of the yearly variety in Albemarle County with an inspector on staff, and the total ballpark cost to taxpayers, back of the napkin, you have at 1.2?
Thereabouts.
1.2 million of the annual variety, ladies and gentlemen. And the type of spending right there that one talk show host, yours truly, may call reckless and irresponsible. Kevin Willis watching the program, Matt Neese watching the program. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We'll relay them live on air here. We got a counselor watching the program, Nelson County Supervisor watching the program, handsome Hank Martin watching the show here. We have to talk, God, I have so much I want to bring by you here. Economic development in Albemarle County, one of your favorite topics here. Emily Kilroy, tremendous respect for Emily Kilroy. I do as well. Albemarle County is now driving economic development with its focus even more. It's not just resting its laurels on AstraZeneca. The mission now is to drive econ dev at even greater momentum in Albemarle. Can you put it in perspective for the viewers and listeners? And then I'll ask some pointed questions.
Sure. As the only public at the Economic Development Authority meeting this week, we heard about the idea was to discuss, for the authority to discuss what types of projects would be appropriate for staff to look into in support of their big goals. And some of the things that they were talking about, and the Economic Development Authority has some money, but not a lot of money. Some of the things they were talking about is shared equipment for infrastructure for agribusinesses. So one idea was refrigerated trucks. Not only could a co-opt refrigerated truck fleet of some sort help the agribusinesses during harvest, it can help start up manufacturing. For chemical manufacturing, there's a need for refrigerated movement of product. So it is a multitude. So staff, I think, is going to look into what would that look like. 2 months ago, they actually endorsed providing, I think it was $20,000 toward a $50,000 refrigerator truck that was a match for what's called an APHID grant, which is the Agriculture, Forestry, Industrial Development. The idea of it is that you get a match from the county, you get money from the state, and then you put in the other 50%, and you get what you need to move forward. And that was for a local farm to have a refrigerated truck to move product and to be able to service a new need in the market. So these are small things that make a big difference, especially when you're really just trying to figure out whether there's a business here or not. The differential of $10,000 or $15,000 in your capital costs can make or break a business.
100%. $10,000 or $15,000, and for a lot of businesses in Charlottesville and Albemarle County are running a business in the black or running the business in the red.
Absolutely.
It's the profit. $10,000 or $15,000 a business may or may not make that year. There's a number of businesses that are on our client roster or are asking us for consulting help, that if they find another $15,000 or $20,000, a bag of money at the end of the year, then they're sending us Christmas cards.
Yes.
And bottles of booze. Like, sincerely mean that. So that's big. I have to ask you this question. It seems from my standpoint that economic development in Albemarle County is way more dialed in than economic development in Charlottesville City. Give us the Monday morning quarterback here.
My Monday morning quarterbacking of economic development in the city is that it is a different animal. You really can't say that Three Notched Brewing can be compared with InBev, which, those are different animals.
And he's referencing Devil's Backbone at 151, that's now owned by InBev, a global conglomerate, versus Three Notch Brewing, that's owned by, Scott Roth, George Castendike, and some gentlemen that live here locally.
Right. So
that's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. And they're different. They have different problems and different opportunities. And some of the things that are going on in Charlottesville economic development are not as flashy as those things that are going on in Albemarle economic development and don't really make the news.
Okay, well, give me some examples.
Well,
boring economic development.
Boring economic development. I understand that the Economic Development Office in Charlottesville has been critically helpful to a number of folks coming to Charlottesville that I can't share names about, but in helping to work their way through the regulatory process to get approved to get to Charlottesville. That doesn't give you big ribbon cuttings. That ends up giving you opportunities. I would suggest that Albemarle has more large-scale opportunities, and Charlottesville is much more suited for startup opportunities. The reality is startups fail, and so you're going to have some that go and some that don't, and that's business. I believe that Charlottesville's economic development strategic plan is solid. Recognizing that it is not Albemarle. It is not, I like to say Albemarle sometimes likes to compare itself to Fairfax County. Fairfax County has 5 economic development offices, 1 on each continent. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Connie Sylvester watching the program. She's very active at the Albemarle Republican Party. Carol Thorpe, the founder of the Tea Party, watching the show. James Watson watching the program. Beth Marcus, the Queen of Farmington, watching the show right now. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We'll relay them live on air. We have some breaking news that I'm going to relay to Neil Williamson on the show, literally in real time. This did not come up in our pre-production meeting, and it's breaking news passed along to me from Deep Throat, number 1 in the family here. The Old Ivy Road project, which is the, I should know its name. In fact, I have it right in front of me. It's the one on the bypass, done by Graystar Real Estate Partners, 525 units. Delivery is now, and they've now made an official announcement online for the first phase of development that is now able to be rented, Neil Williamson. The units, Deep Throat's already done the reconnaissance and given us the analysis, $2.50 to $3 a square foot. They're calling it the Dean, the Old Ivy project. This is the one you see from the bypass, guys, under Ivy Bridge by St. Anne's Belfield. And here we go. Here are the price points. They are available June 15th, ladies and gentlemen. You are looking at 53, roughly 75 units of phase 1. Actually, it's 68 specifically. Here we go. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom unit, 740 total square feet. You want to venture to guess the monthly rent on a 1 bedroom, 1 bath that's 740 square feet? $2,100. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 740 square feet, $2,098. Let's just call it, for the sake of a talk show, $2,100. I love the Walmart pricing of the $2,098 for the 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 740 square foot. They go all the way up, ladies and gentlemen, to 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. And the 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bath units, geez Louise, are knocking on the door of $4,000 a month. $3,976. Holy crap, there's actually more over. I'm going down the list here. The 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath units, the most expensive 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath unit at the Dean is $4,574 for 1,443 square feet. That's unit 6,124, 6124. It's now online. It's called the Dean. 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath, $4,574 a month in rent. That's breaking news right there. We are literally figuring this out on real time. Chief Gotchis, welcome to the show. Anything you want to talk about when it comes to this project?
Free Enterprise Forum firmly believes in more housing everywhere for everyone. If there is someone in our community or wants to be in our community that wants to spend $4,000 a month in rent, and they can, that frees up, if that is available, that frees up something below that they would have been stuck in at a lower price point. So the idea is that moves people that can spend spend, and it pulls those up. We saw this back in, I want to say it was about 2003. The city went through their last rezoning, and they created a university zone. And we saw folks move. It wasn't permanent, but it was for about 5 to 10 years. You saw people move out of the houses that were surrounding and into these newer buildings because they could, and those houses became available at price points that were attractive to lower income renters.
I get that. Nakia Walker has monikered what you're saying as Oceanomics. Actually, we monikered it Oceanomics. What did Nakia Walker initially call it? No, she called it Ocean Economics. And then through some crafty branding and thinking on the fly, the very savvy and sophisticated hosts of the I Love CVille show had rebranded it Oceanomics. Okay. I push back gently on that. And how I push back gently on that is if you're just tuning into the program, the breaking news is it's literally now online as of this morning. The old Ivy project, the massive development that you see from the 250 bypass right off the Bel Air, St. Anne's Belfield exit, the units are now first online, available for rent. They are move-in ready on June 15th, so we're about, 3 weeks away from that. The 1-bedroom, 1-bath is the asking price is $2,100 a month, and the 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths go as high as $4,574 a month. We'll call it $4,600 for a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. I'll play devil's advocate. It's a talk show. Love you. You know I do. I'm a landlord. I'm going to see these prices. I'm going to use this price sheet to reposition the price points on my 24 doors when they go from lease not getting renewed and I have to flip the unit, new carpet, new paint, any other fixes I got to do. And when I bring it back to market, I'll price it at 15 to 20% less of where this old Ivy project is priced at. And still, I'll be 25% higher than where I'm at now.
Right. And isn't that how the market works? If the market will bear. And what happens if you don't get a tenant?
I cut the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's what the market will bear.
Yeah.
And that is how markets work. It is right now what we have is constrained supply.
That's true.
We will at some point have the opportunity for more supply. When we have more supply, you may find yourself having incentives of giving a month away of rent for free so that you can bring in that tenant that you need to keep, 11 months of rent is better than none.
100%. Okay, devil's advocate again. What happens? Weldon Cooper's projected population growth. Biotechnology driving population growth. More students than ever before looking to enroll at the University of Virginia. The University of Virginia is bringing 2 new schools online, biotechnology and data science. So there's going to be more little Johnnies and little Susies with mommy and daddy's black Amex and the Porsche Cayennes driving around Charlottesville. If the population is increasing while the taxpayer population is increasing, while the student population is increasing, we have more bodies. Isn't the additional supply just going to be filled by the incremental human growth?
Well, that would be the thought, and that's actually the investor's plan, is that's exactly what will happen. But what happens is markets are agile. I heard of a group of college kids that rented a 3-bedroom apartment and then they put a rope ladder up and they had somebody live in the attic. I thought that was crazy, but that was the way they made the rent. So I think that markets respond to lack of supply in different ways. They double up. They move out. Quite frankly, you could see the number of units going forward in Greene County Louisa has a big push right now to slow growth because they see huge development coming without jobs, and they want to preserve their rural character. So they are saying, they've said yes to the data centers to generate the revenue, and now they're saying no to housing to house workers, and frankly, the data centers don't need them. The data centers are very low-level employers. They're high-level water users and electric users.
High-level tax revenue generators.
High-level tax revenue generators.
Yeah, but some would say impede on quality of life, and there's now horror stories circulating real estate circles that anyone who owns homes around or near data centers are having challenging times selling their houses. Their light pollution, there's a lot of light pollution, a lot of water usage. They do spew tax revenue for jurisdictions. I'm torn on the data center deal.
Have you ever heard of purple pipes?
Purple pipes?
I learned this last month.
I have not heard of purple pipes.
Purple pipes. I learned this from the Spotsylvania Economic Development Director in a latte and learn session that I was moderating. They've built infrastructure of purple pipes. These are not treated water, and it's a closed system. And they provide all their data centers the water they need for cooling in these purple pipes. The only water loss they have is evaporation. Now, that was a huge investment. It was a forward investment, but it certainly is a way to deal with it. And I'm a big believer in light cutoff, the night skies ordinance that allows it. I'm also a big believer in having light around my property because it's a safety issue, not only for my employees, but for those that may be scandalously running around the property. So I think light is a critical part, but when you mitigate for those impacts, you can move on. I've also heard horror stories about diesel generators running because they have to run every 2 weeks. That can be scheduled to be run at noon on Tuesdays so that it has the least impact to the neighboring parcels. All of these are impacts, but there are impacts to having a house next to you with a pool that has kids screaming.
That was a zing at me. That was a zing at me. That was your first
My
one.
quiet Ivy neighborhood was pierced by this screaming.
And dude, they're terrorists in this Ivy neighborhood. Our two sons. You can hear them from a long ass ways away. That's the first zing right there from Neil Williamson. This is why I love having him on the show. Here's a couple of metrics for you from Deep Throat, who is legitimately one of the smartest people I know. He says the old Ivy project, this is now called, it has a name, guys. It's called the Dean. The Dean. The 1-bedroom, 1-bath has now gone online for $2,100 a month, and a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath is gone on market for, we're going to call it $4,700 a month. So we just have clean numbers here. It's $250 to $3 a square foot a month for the Dean. Here's the metric. The other interesting thing you should discuss is if you go back to the market impact report that the City of Charlottesville commissioned before passing the new zoning ordinance, the consultants were making crazy assumptions like $1.80 a square foot per month for rent on new projects. The Dean shows you that it's $250 to $3 a square foot per month on new development, which is not cheap. Then he says, Deep Throat, I'm looking at the more recent inclusionary zoning report, and they have rental price assumptions on the low $2 a square foot area, which is way on the low side. Explain what he's talking about right there.
Well, the justification City Council received for having their inclusionary zoning, which was I've written extensively about as being a bad idea, whereas you are mandated to produce a certain percentage that is available to folks at 60% area median income for 99 years. And this is the bad math that is behind it. And so we called out the issue at the time, and what we were told was, well, the data is about 6 to 8 months old, and it's just not up to today's standard. Well, what we're seeing is that clearly it's dated. It's supposed to be reviewed every 2 years. We're past the 2-year point. When are we going to get a review of this silly inclusionary zoning that everyone that seems to think we're getting lots of development isn't recognizing everything that's coming out of the ground right now came out under the old zoning ordinance. We have very few developments coming out under the new zoning
There's
ordinance.
been some.
There have been some, but not many.
Yeah, well, the mark couldn't have been necessarily a reality if it wasn't for the new zoning ordinance and FIFIL.
That's true.
The affordable housing requirements, if memory serves, new development in the city of Charlottesville, if you're doing a project that's more than 9 units, 10% of those units must be affordable at 60% area median income for 99 years.
Correct.
And the idiocy of the 99-year threshold is it's literally past the shelf life of the housing stock that's created. And I learned that from speaking with the developer at the Verve, the out-of-market developer. He's like, dude, we're not even projecting the Verve to be around here in like 50 or 60 years. Right. Like, we're just trying to do a model that's like 50 years here on this 200, whatever, I'm just back in the napkin, this $200 million apartment tower. We just want 50 years from it.
And if you hear a discussion at the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors last Wednesday, 90 years is what they think is the best management practices of affordable housing at this time.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What it means is that's the gold standard for the idea that the building may not be there, but you're going to be required to produce that number of affordable units regardless of what building is there.
But that's asinine. And is it not asinine if the development is thresholded at 50 or 60 years and the housing affordability is 2x the shelf life of what the people are saying the stock will last, and they have to build a model that covers overhead and they have to be able to finance it.
Well, and the units can't be substantially different.
Yeah, they have to be the same
units.
Amenities.
Yeah.
Right? Do they not?
Correct.
Yeah. So that just shows you that right there is layman speak that it's how you want me to use the word, or do
you can use whatever word you want.
The stupidest thing in the whole wide world? Can I say that? Is it not ridiculous?
It is a bad idea that sounds really good.
It's a bad idea that sounds really good. You said it better than I could. There you go. You said it better than I could. The mark, FIFIL. Haven't had a chance to talk with you on the record like we're doing now about, I'll get the exact metrics here. I go into my IG where we talked about it. I mean, this is a pretty sizable project. It's behind the church on West Main Street. That's a historically African-American church. The mark is literally in the heartbeat of FIFIL. It's luxury student housing done by Landmark Properties, the same developer behind the Standard. And a lot of people were opposed to the mark, which is 7 stories, 180 units, and 770 beds. Remember, the developer Landmark Properties sold the Standard to a real estate investment trust led by Morgan Stanley. So it's not the developer anymore that owns the Standard, and the same developer who's fireside chatting, if you may, with the community members about being a good steward has now exited an apartment tower that within walking distance of the new apartment tower they're building in FIFIL called the Mark. Where do you want to go on 7 stories, 180 units, and 770 beds in FIFIL?
Well, let me start by saying we don't take positions on projects. That's important to note. My discussion of this is much more about policy.
Okay.
The idea of growing taller in something that many years ago decided to call itself a world-class city is probably a logical conclusion based on the zoning code that was vetted by the community through the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance rewrite. There was discussion, folks seem to think there wasn't, but there was discussion, I believe it was Lloyd Snook that brought it up, any building over 5 stories should have a special use permit. The city council at the time thought that's a bad idea. That's one more hurdle to get over and one more chance for folks to speak out opposing the very thing that we want to do, which is more density in our core. And this location is in the core where the zoning ordinance said it should be.
Off West Main Street, if there's development that should happen, It should happen on West Main Street. If there's development that should happen, it should happen in a corridor that is the gateway between the university, downtown, and the health system. A corridor that you would say, Midtown, let's call it, that's somewhat underachieving. The unfortunate aspect of this story is that it's in a historically black neighborhood in one of the last pockets of affordable housing in Charlottesville City. Compounding the matter is the similar apartment tower that's percolating, similar specs by West Haven, public housing, and another apartment tower that's now in the works, courtesy of Woodard Properties, in the Rose Hill neighborhood. We have 3 apartment towers that are going to be of the luxury variety, potentially being constructed at the exact same time. 2 of them, the Mark and the one that overshadows West Haven, which is done by LV Collective. That's a Texas developer. And then Woodard Properties is a local developer in Rose Hill. Those 3 towers will be in a hop, skip, and a jump of each other, and all 3 towers are in historically black and marginalized communities. That's the unfortunate storyline the unfortunate aspect of this storyline. And I feel, and I'm going to throw it to you as a question, I empathize for the neighborhood. I am very much a capitalist and very much a businessman. And the viewers and listeners that watch this program know this. What's going to happen when those projects are done, the area that's around those 3 projects are going to gentrify quickly. The tax base is going to increase. Speculators are going to pounce and target the surrounding areas. And a historically black neighborhood is going to get extremely affluent and extremely homogenous in its look very quickly. It's a living, breathing document, Brian Pinkston's words, the zoning ordinance. And he has said, he's no longer on council though, that it's subject to change because it's a living, breathing document. Should certain neighborhoods be refocused or the conversation open again for protection from development? What do they call them? Sensitive neighborhoods?
I think they walked away from sensitive as a term. I think they used a different term.
Yeah.
But that conveys what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
The market reality is that the buildings, when they're completed, will have an impact on those neighborhoods.
Big time.
And the fact that it's being done by an out-of-town developer does not bother me. I'm agnostic.
Even if it's an out-of-town developer that's already shown that they're going to sell once the project is done to a real estate investment trust led by Morgan Stanley, they're going to roll up a bunch of properties in $1 billion plus deal and then peace out of town.
I'm sorry. I thought that was the idea of there are people that build these projects and there are people that run these projects.
You're saying that's business.
That's business.
Yeah,
there are a few developers that I know that do both, build and develop and run.
Yeah.
That are active in this community.
Yeah, Woodard's
today.
one. Yeah.
Woodard's one.
Yeah.
Breeden Development also does that across the state.
Yeah.
But they're different skill sets. You also see folks with Park Properties is another good example. They build through Pinnacle Construction and then hang on, and they have they're very good, especially at affordable housing. But there's nothing wrong with building something and selling it. That doesn't change anything that went as a part of the land application. The rules and regs with the land application carry with the land, not with the owner.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying this is the game, is what Neil is saying. And I get it. This is the game. This is Landmark Properties is going to build the mark, and if the track record at the standard is the proof of performance, they're going to build, they're going to lease, they're going to develop rent roll, they're going to develop yield, and they're going to develop proof of performance, and then they're going to exit, and they're going to try to get a return. Corin did that. Corin Capshaw did that with the flats, and he crushed it with the flats. That's the game. The concern you have as a community member is the developer that's having the fireside chats with the community now, making promises of what they're going to do with the development and being good stewards of the neighborhood. Those promises do not convey when properties are sold.
unless they're part of the application.
Yeah, unless they're part of the application. God, I got so much I got to cover with you here. We have to talk about the Rivanna River encampment. Chief Koches, who's watching the program, was on record with Legacy Media this week talking about the dangerous conditions of the Rivanna River encampment. We now have 2 encampments. We now have one on 0 East High Street. He talked about unfortunately we've had some rain, but he talked about the dangers of propane heaters. He talked about the obvious dirty needles that are everywhere. He talked about the significant human waste that is on and next to these encampments. These are literally his words. And he said, look, the police is the last resort. It's up to council to determine if these encampments are not allowed anymore on city-owned property. And then the conversation was Patcham and an interim shelter at 2000 Holiday Drive, but that would need significant funding. We're talking millions of dollars for Patcham to run an interim shelter at 2000 Holiday Drive, the 27,000 brick Georgian office building the city purchased from a private real estate owner. I'll start open-ended like I do with every topic with you. Rivanna River encampment, 0 East High Street encampment, short-term shelters for long-term shelters, and more taxpayer money requests.
What I see with homelessness is to quote Shrek, an onion. There's a lot of layers to this. And
Shrek.
the idea behind it is really one of behaviors. What behaviors we don't want to have happening, not about we don't want these people in our community. We need to modify the behaviors. And part of that is providing opportunities for them to be somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in the safety net. We should have a safety net. We're an affluent community. We should have a safety net of some sort. I believe that safety net should be designed to protect the homeless and protect the community. How to do that is delicate. And I believe the city is in the midst of a very impressive 2-step to try and find solutions.
You say impressive? Wow.
I believe that behind the scenes, it is taking more than you can imagine to get the various factions to work together. And
What's factions you mean? Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless, Patcham, and the Haven.
as well as the funders, which is city council,
Yeah.
which is like herding cats at times.
Okay.
And getting all of them to see not just the problem, but how the solution also has to be like an onion and layered. We need to have wraparound services. We need to have safe care. I think there's a desperate need for the Salvation Army expansion.
100%.
These are needs of our community. The city has dedicated significant money to those needs. There's more money to be spent. And folks start to worry about it. Well, how much money are we going to spend? I've heard again and again, once we start spending this money, people are going to flock here. Homeless folks will flock here to get these benefits. I am not convinced, based on the data that I've studied, that that is a reality based on data. There's certainly anecdotal information, and I've seen it in person. But I don't believe that this community is one that wants folks living by the river and pooping in their river.
Yeah, right. And that's the best case scenario. Some of the nasty scenario would be the dirty syringes by the river and fires under Freebridge. I agree with 85% of what you said. First, what I agree with, the Salvation Army, especially after hearing Matt Greed on yesterday's show, the board of director from the Salvation Army, talking about the $28 million capital raise that they're doing for a brand new shelter on Ridge Street. The current shelter on Ridge Street for the Salvation Army is 55 beds. And I have not walked through this. Neil and I had a conversation about this before the show. He has walked through it. The 55-bed program, I'm going to use this word as outdated. the 55-bed shelter.
That's fair. Nate.
Outdated.
That's fair.
Okay. They want to take an outdated shelter of 55 beds and they want to make it a 114-bed shelter, 4 stories and 47,634 square feet. Me, just being a guy that likes stats and numbers, took $28 million. I'm doing it on my calculator now, and I divided it by 114 beds, and I got $245,614 per bed. That's a lot of money. But then Matt Green, the board of director, pushed back on that and said, let me break those numbers down for you. And it also helps that Matt Green is a commercial real estate broker. So he does this professionally for a living. He said, let's look at the $28 million. 18 of a million that is raised so far, including $3 million from the city of Charlottesville. 2.2 of that 28 million is for furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. 2.2 of that 28 million is budgeted for an endowment that can offer future return as the shelter is alive and running going down the road. 1.6 million of that is for contingencies, overruns. So if you took the $28 million and you subtracted, I'm doing the math on my calculator here, 2.2, 2, and I subtracted another 2. I don't know why I just didn't put that in as 4. I could do some basic math, Jerry. And then I subtract another 1.6 million. Why didn't I just do that as, okay, I'm going to do it with 1.6 million that way. You get $22 million. Okay. Then you take that 22 million and you divide it by 114, and you're down to about 192,000 a bed. He said, dude, that's $462 a square foot. And then he explained that each of the floors are built cement, and that it's such a specific shelter because it's going to get such a heavy usage that it can't be stick built, which adds to the cost. And he goes, $462 is the price in today's market. And then the best thing that he said, then I'll pass it to you, is that the Salvation Army has a track record of doing this, not just in Charlottesville, but in the country. That if you bring someone into the Salvation Army shelter after 3 months of being in the shelter, they are assimilated back into the workforce and back into society and off the streets from a homelessness standpoint. So once I heard like the plan explained, I'm like, dude, this makes sense. The Holiday Drive shelter is just immediate housing. The Holiday Drive shelter is not like, it's not proof of performance Salvation Army.
No, the Holiday Drive shelter also has lower requirements to get in.
Alcohol, drug, and sex offender and criminal history allowed
And
at the Holiday Drive shelter.
Yes, and at least the last time I reviewed it, which was not so long ago, it does include wraparound services regarding job training, location, finding folks places to go. The idea of bringing these nonprofits together is they each serve a function, and by bringing them all in one place, it's a one-stop shop, and they can get what they need for a hand up rather than a handout.
Yeah. The challenge, and you've followed this as closely as I have, the initial budgets presented to City Council from BRAC, Patcham, and the Haven were budgets that they did without commingling services or vertically integrating their services. They were like, this is what Patcham needs to do this. This is what BRAC needs to do this, and this is what the Haven needs to do this. And then Council and Sam Sanders pushed back on them and said, you guys need to come back to me with the budget that's unified with the three of you guys working together, and not three separate budgets for you three entities to basically fund your work here. That's what he said. And then he said, you need to do it faster than slower. And we are now at the 6-month anniversary of the 2000 Holiday Drive purchase. It was this week. We're 6 months into ownership and taking that piece of property off the tax rolls.
So I guess the question is, the build-out and the design, from designing buildings and remodeling things, takes time. Right now you have 5 people on council working with a group of folks that are working on the design, and each of them have a different vision in their mind of what this shelter should look like. There have been significant changes in design and programming as budgets have come out to build and expand the Holiday Drive facility, and it has been an iterative process and a painful process. I think of when you build a house. you make choices and decisions. Do I need to have 2 outlets here, or could I do with just code? Those types of little things add up. And there are bigger questions. Okay, people that are homeless have things. Where will those things go? Should we have dedicated lockers for those things? Should those lockers be easily accessible? How do we manage that? And all of those are programmatic questions that need to be answered. And quite frankly, the folks that are on the committee working on this are wrestling with those very issues as we speak.
Here's a very pointed question. Is 2000 Holiday Drive a good idea? And will 2000 Holiday Drive end up, with the benefit of hindsight, or say a handful of years down the road, being one of the most significant boondoggles of the last decade for the city?
In 5 years' time, 2000 Holiday Drive has the potential to be part of the homeless solution. There will always be homeless folks. That's something that I believe firmly. There are folks that want to be homeless. It's the truth. That being said, the continuum of care, which is the federal term, having this as part of the continuum of care enhances our ability to make homelessness rare and brief.
Fair enough. We covered everything. Rental inspections, the Mark, LV Collective, the Woodard Properties projects, the encampment, the interim shelter for the long-term, the short-term shelter for the long-term shelter, the Salvation Army Economic Development in Albemarle County. I learned something, which I should have known this. There's 16,000 rentals in Albemarle County. I should have known this. Together, we broke some news with the help of Deep Throat. The dean is now, and I'll send you the link, so you have it as well. The dean is now, as of this morning, active, and it's the real estate project that it's build for lease. It's a build for lease, not build to own, on the 250 bypass by Ivy Road and the St. Anne's exit. The 1-bedroom, 1-baths go from $2,100 a month to the 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths go as high as $4,600 a month. Absolutely insane. And the biggest unit so far being marketed is 1,443 square feet. I'm going to give props to Neil Williamson and encourage the viewers and listeners to please support and donate and to the Free Enterprise Forum. This dude is at the meetings. This dude is following it. He is in person. He is, in very large majority, the only person there from the public. He's a huge asset to the community. Is there anything in your notebook or any talking point that we didn't cover that should be out there?
I encourage folks, we're coming up on June 1, and in the world of nonprofits, June 1 is when you look at where you are fundraising-wise for the year. We're a little behind, and I need help. freeenterpriseforum.org and click the donate button. You can donate online, you can send a check. I'll come pick it up if you want. I'll come chat to your group about life, the universe, and everything. I need to have support in order to keep this work going. freeenterpriseforum.org.
freeenterpriseforum.org, guys. freeenterpriseforum.org. Support the mission and the effort. It is absolutely fantastic work that he's doing. Judah Wickower is behind the camera. He's Neil Williamson. My name is Jerry Miller. I'm going to talk about the Dean some more on the I Love CVille show at 12:30. And we're going to talk about the story that Jerry Ratcliffe broke last night about Lars Tiffany, Carla Williams, and the real story behind the Lars Tiffany, you call it firing, you call it quitting. That story is on jerryratcliffe.com. For Neil Williamson, for Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. So long, everybody.